Hello, everybody. My name is Stefan Kreuer. I'm an expert for healthcare and sustainability, especially in supply chains. I want to talk today about the best practices we can see in the German healthcare sector. And for that, I want to share my presentation with you. And we want to start with Zuge Green. I'm a managing director of Zuge Green. What is Zuge Green? It's a network, especially in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, with a mission to connect all the people who want to drive sustainability in hospitals in generally and focused on supply chain. We got more than 80 members, for example, sustainability managers, climate managers, procurement managers, supply chain managers, technical managers, head of digitizations, and we represent the full people of hospitals. Because you think we just can manage the sustainability topic in the context to each other and through different professions. Now I want to start, what is maternity in sustainability in German healthcare? Before I start to present you best practices, I want to share that only 6% of German hospitals have a really good, dedicated, explained sustainability strategy. So we are here right now in the beginning, but as we can see with the regulations, the drivers like the CSRD or the Supply Chain Act, I think we get a boost in the next 2 years. So let's start. What are the best practices in the German hospitals? Of course, you can see one of the biggest leverage is to do not less than just switch anesthetic gases. We can see that this is the largest CO2 reduction lever in the hospital. We see that CO2 emissions in hospital, 4% of CO2 emissions are from the anesthetic narcotic gases. And when you can switch, when you're using right now desfluran, for example, you can switch to sevofluran and save 80% of that 4% CO2 gases. This is a really huge recommendation. If you're still using desfluran, this is a really low-hanging fruit. So there are some other options like recycle other things, which is in the narcosis cycle, but this is a good point to start. The second point to start is, of course, to use the leverage of recycling. So we can see, for example, the University Hospital of Bonn is a really role model. So many greetings to Michael Schmitz, who has established and conducted a lot of projects in this kind, for example, recycling projects for circular stapler or catheter tubes for breathing or bronchoscopes. So you can share, you connect to the University Hospital of Bonn, to Michael Schmitz, and he's willing to share his expertise. So other leverage, of course, reprocessing, refurbish for diagnostic medtech devices, for example. They can recommend you a startup in Germany. It's called Medigo Green, which helps you to get a really easy access to leverage this potential. This digital platform, which makes hospitals easy to use the potential of recycling, reprocessing, and refurbish old medtech products which are still running, to extend the life cycle, to do something worth with the end of the life cycle in your own hospital. And for example, of course, the medical remanufacturing process, just identify which high-cost medtech product, in case of, for example, supplies for robotics, can not only be used one time but maybe 10 times or even more, just to save money and make an impact for the environment. Another thing is, of course, the CO2 accounting, because the CSRD requires accounting not only for the normal money accounting, but also the CO2 accounting. And we see in that field in Germany, there are role models like University of Freiburg and Heidelberg. They are did the CO2 calculator, which is free access. You can see here in this picture, free access in the internet. Just Google CO2 calculator for University Freiburg, and you could download this, and then you can see how these university hospitals calculated their CO2 footprint in scope 1, 2, and particularly in scope 3. This is very interesting. We can see that the University Hospital of Berlin, Charité, one of the biggest, or even the biggest hospital in Europe, makes a project for CO2 accounting. This is also very interesting, a different approach. Just maybe connect to that people via LinkedIn, or I can give you the link. So another really driver for sustainability and a best practice in Germany is the German Supply Chain Act. We call it Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz, or LKSG. And in about 2 or 3 years, there's coming up a Europe version of the Lieferkettengesetz. It's called CS3D or CSDDD. It's called Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. It's the European version of the German Act. And this is also a really breakthrough in kind of sustainability, because it's a first put a stick in the stick in the ground to make supply chain really completely transparency, predictable, and trust. So first, for the act, it's just the tier 1 supplier. So it's your supplier where you buy the product. But for the European-wide law, it's not just only the tier 1, but also tier 2, tier 3, to the plants where the product is produced or the resources are coming from. So I think in the next 3-4 years, there's a big change. Every supply chain is transparent, it's digitized, and you can see what is good and what is bad in the supply chain, how this product and the way from birth to death, or cradle to grave, or cradle to cradle, what is in the supply chain going on, about the human rights, about the environment impact, and about the value of the product. So the best practice for the Lieferkettengesetz in Germany, I can recommend the SRH clinics, SRH clinic in Heidelberg. You can see at this landing page, there's a landing page for the Supply Chain Act, where you can see how that hospital group defines that, what is their not sustainability, responsibility in case of supply chains. And only if you know how a hospital is defined sustainability and supply chain, you can offer a hospital the right product or the right process, because that fits to your strategy and your opinions. So I can recommend a few clinics, forerunners in Germany, for example, the rehab clinic group Dr. Becker, the URL natürlich für morgen.de. You can see there how their strategy is in case of sustainability, and what are the actions right now. For example, the University of Essen, they have a good landing page, nachhaltigkeit.ume.de, as well as the University Hospital of Hamburg and the University Hospital of Freiburg, for example. So to sum it up, I think we have to integrate all that leverages and potentials of sustainabilities in the business models. not only the business models of the hospitals, but as well in the hospital, from the stakeholders. For example, the medtech supplier or other supplier of a relevant product group which the hospital is buying. So in my opinion, there's a new way to buy products is coming up next, because we will see a shift from I buy a product with a special price to buy a service. For example, a product as a service. For example, you buy the light and not the product. You buy a service where you have a good KPI to measure that, and then pay a fee to the supplier, because the responsorship for the product still lies in the manufacturer or supplier. So that causes product use extension. We see sharing platforms to optimize utilization rates of products and assets, and to resource and recovery, to use the material and think, how can we make this circularity happen? And I think this is a big shift. There's a few laws coming up to accelerate that trend. This is really a big thing. So what we still need is, we need governance. So governance, I think, of course, what is sustainability? It's the 3 pillars: environmental, social, governance, but also knowledge. But I think governance is really underestimated, because we need governance in kind of leadership that we have to integrate sustainability in our business models, in our management process. And there's recommend you, everybody knows the St. Gallen management model. You have to integrate the sustainability in the way we want to manage a company. So we have to set up strategies, targets, KPIs, and you just can't do that when you do it on the management level. What we need is, of course, we need standards Europe-wide, better globally, because the supply chains and the business models are really globally. So standards are coming up, like the CSRD in 2 years for the hospitals. We see the CS3D is coming up. We see standards like E-Class, where you can type in your product carbon footprint if you are a supplier in a defined field. We see more and more upcoming certifications. And I think the GS1, the Global Standard Organization, non-profit, has this huge importance, because we have so much e-business standards. We just use them to make everybody clear what we're talking about the same, and the automation can do its job, because there's all is not interrupted from a process, because we have to integrate all our sustainability action targets monitoring in our enterprise resource planning software to automate it if we want to use the leverage. So my recommendation is to use all the existing networks in Europe, for example, the Healthcare Without Harm, the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, or Zucker Green as a community. And we see that it's really important that the politics create incentives to accelerate that trend to sustainability. And we see in Germany that our Bundesministerium für Ministry for Economic and Climate Change wants to do a new public tender act in the next year to implement a climate-friendly quote for climate-friendly products. So this could be also as well a really big shift. So to the end, I come up to summarize what strategic milestones you can do. So first of all, for hospitals, you have to create our organizational structure. For example, a green or sustainability teams and set up your information flow. Second, you have to analyze your status quo. Third, start with CO2 balancing, balance and accounting and energy accounting, of course. And put a stick in the ground and move forward. Then make a materiality analysis. It's really important. Think about your stakeholders, what your stakeholders are, what your stakeholders defines about corporate responsibility and sustainability, and for what you focus on, because a rehab hospital or clinic has other demands and focus like a big acute clinic like Charité. Then define the goals and think about an incentive system for employees, because the employees can be really a big leverage to reach the sustainability goals. Then, of course, the measures in financing and planning, as I said, to integrate in the ERP systems, the controlling, the compliance, and integrate all the acts, the laws are coming up. And then third, one of the most important things is to communicate the Lighthouse projects which you have done. Don't communicate too much, but communicate really one really great project just to inspire other hospitals and make bold. Then last but not least, I think there are a lot of certifications are coming up in the next year to make sure that a hospital or a supplier is sustainable. There are a lot of labels are coming up and certifications. So this was my, a few slides. I just want to recommend you in the end of the presentations to come to our own Congress. It's an online Congress in the end of November. Go to the website congress.suke-green.de. It's completely free for clinics and hospitals. So I would love to see you there. So thank you very much. Here are my email address, and you can contact me anytime on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, and goodbye.